You haven't truly lived until you've tried to zip tie a 5-pound red duct tape waddle onto the neck of a 12-foot plastic skeleton, while a cop watches from his cruiser, head tilted warm light on his face, that exact look that says, "Which choices brought me here?" And it's 38 degrees out and your fingers are numb, and honestly, it should be illegal. How satisfying the click of plastic can sound. I was standing on a ladder in flannel pajama pants tucked into unlaced boots, eye level with my neighbor Janice's second-story window. I could see the blinds twitch tiny shark gill movements, and there she was, phone pressed to her ear, watching, and I could practically hear her filing the thought into the neighbor grievances folder inside her head. "Sir?" the officer called from the cruiser, voice muffled through cold air. He didn't get out. He rolled his window down just enough to let the heat escape. "Can you come down from the ladder?" I held up the waddle like it was a trophy chicken wire frame, 3 rolls of industrial tape, a masterpiece of amateur engineering. "Just a second, officer," I shouted back and my voice cracked. "Bonesy needs his waddle." Yes, I called him Bonesy. 12 feet of retail plastic I ordered like a person buys a guitar, like it was a necessity. For October, my yard had been a kingdom. Fog machine purple uplights, LCD eyes that blinked, kids stopped on their bikes. Parents took selfies, and I, a 32-year-old graphic designer who pays taxes and mows on Saturdays, felt like the mayor of weird. But here's where it gets petty. November 1st is when the neighborhood turns into a laundry list of taste policing. Pumpkins rot, cobwebs go from spooky to trashy, and someone leaves a resume paper note taped to your front door like a summons. "Dear resident, your display has crossed a line. Grotesque. Disturbing. Remove by noon." It smelled of passive aggression and old yard society rules. I looked at Janice's manicured lawn and then at Bonesy, who stared back with dead plastic eyes. He didn't look demonic. He looked misunderstood. So I read the HOA bylaws because, of course, I did. Section 8.0 holiday decorations installed no earlier than 30 days prior and removed no later than 14 days after the holiday. Technically, Thanksgiving was within the window. That warm ember of spite lit into a wildfire of mischief. If she wanted to police the holidays fine, I would celebrate the next current holiday. I called my contractor friend Tony, not Mafia, just a big cheerful menace with hands like ham hocks, and had him sink concrete footings and bolt Bonesy's base so nobody could topple him without a small construction crew. Then I made him into a pilgrim. Trash can hat, black felt tunic cornucopia wired to his hand, a corpse in a pilgrim tunic, ridiculous and perfect. Janice saw it, shrieked, called the police. Officer Miller sighed a lot and threatened paperwork. Paperwork is the suburban cudgel, but I knew I'd check the bylaws. Thanksgiving morning was performance art. Runners in spandex rounded the corner, did double takes. Phones went up and a bottleneck of laughter formed at my driveway. Janice flung open her door furious and in a robe, and I, cheerful absurd, blamed history and called it a tribute to the founding and to the underserved weirdness of our block. She threatened police, I threatened humor. Then things escalated. I wired Bonesy with LEDs and a spotlight. I had an electrician run conduit up his spine, and yes, I downloaded a ridiculous bass-heavy ho-ho-ho clip pitched down into a baritone to vibrate the siding. I was courting escalation like it was a new relationship, dangerous, intoxicating. Officer Miller came back at night and made me turn it down, angle the light, and yes, tuck the doll leg a little farther into the bag. He took a picture with his phone for his kid. He didn't want to deal with paperwork either. Janice switched tactics. Silence. No more notes, no more calls. Quiet is a weapon in the suburbs, colder than fury, slower than an insult. The war became endurance. I dressed Bonesy for every holiday Santa with a squeaky fake beard and a bag that looked disturbingly like a body bag. A skiing skeleton with thrift store wooden skis and a porch roof ramp. Cupid with a diaper and cardboard wings pointing his arrow, all of it petty, all of it elaborate, all of it fun. The twist, the thing that made me stop and laugh and then feel a little ashamed, came one night when I scrubbed the Ring camera footage and saw Bob Janice's sad, shuffling husband in plaid slippers and a ski mask teeping Bonesy at 2 a.m. He threw rolls with the enthusiasm of someone trying to reclaim a tiny victory. He failed spectacularly. He fist-pumped at his own avocado victory and shuffled home. I watched him on the feed and felt something like respect. A guerrilla was born in my enemy's camp. The HOA called a meeting. I treated it like a trial in a show. I printed bylaws and charts, but I also brought receipts, photos of hundreds of neighbors stopping to laugh, to snap selfies, to say it made them feel like this weird street had personality. Gary, the HOA president with the gavels in his head, counted hands until a tie 22-22, and then in the most American move possible, he cast the deciding vote. Bonesy stays. Tie broken. Victory, but softer than I imagined. Here's the moral that hurt winning with pettiness is hollow. Janice stopped looking at me, retreated into curated neutrality. The feud that had defined my afternoons dissolved into awkward silence. For a while I missed the drama. I missed the sense of purpose that comes from keeping the flame lit. Then something surprising happened. Grandkids. One morning, Janice's grandchildren arrived, eyes wide at the sight of Bonesy. They ran up to the property line and begged to see him. Janice, who had been a shark for months, hesitated, then said, "Go ahead, but don't touch the structure. It's art." Saying art like that cracked something open. Kids circled Bonesy, asked questions, and for the first time in months, Janice watched with something close to wonder. The war became a story, and she laughed. It wasn't a surrender so much as a thaw. I learned the same lesson again when I offered a truce gift, a 6-foot animatronic werewolf for her grandkids and a homemade shepherd's pie. The werewolf got bolted into her mulch. She tested it, jumped, giggled, and then in a move that felt like the end of a long trial, she smiled. Small concessions, small acts of shared ridiculousness turned enemies into uneasy allies. There were false victories. I thought blasting cold sparks from an Uncle Sam costume on the 4th would be the finale sparks that glittered like diamonds and looked spectacular, until a zoning inspector showed up because Janice had called well in advance and played a cousin on the county board. Karma is patient. She'd waited until I overextended and then played the rulebook card. But then Bob, leaning from behind the hedge with a beer, whispered that the inspector was bluffing, that Cousin Phil had no teeth in that jurisdiction, and suddenly I had a choice: comply and let the night die, or push the button and risk a fine. I pushed it. For Bob, for the kids, for the neighborhood that cheered as the sky filled with cold, glittering light. The fire marshal came later, serious and efficient, but she laughed too, admitted there were worse calls, and left with a warning and a compliment about wiring neatness. That to me felt like a small, rightful victory, not about humiliating Janice anymore, but about proving the town could hold a little spectacle without burning down. Season after season. Bonesy became a weird town monument: turkey pilgrim, Santa skier, mariachi, school kid, scholar, guardian. People used him to cool themselves at the block party, kids bathed under his mist, and neighbors who once plotted vandalism were now bringing folding chairs to watch my displays. Janice stopped plotting. She started suggesting collaborations. A zip-line sleigh suspended between our chimneys, synchronized lights, coordinated displays that turned 2 grumpy yards into a single show that won a county plaque. So what's the lesson? Pettiness escalates for sure. Small grievances balloon fast when both sides feed them. But escalation can also turn into a strange kind of art. If you let conflict define you, you become the grudge. If you pivot, if you find a ridiculous common ground, a werewolf for a grandkid, a shared sleigh for a contest, you can turn bitter theater into something oddly generous. I learned that the person you think is your enemy might be the person who will end up helping you string a cable across 2 chimneys at 3 a.m. to win a plaque. And yes, there is karma. Janice tried the long game: paperwork, silent treatment, diplomacy, and for a while she had the upper hand. But the moment of perfect karma was messy, unsanctioned, and beautiful, when the whole block cheered and Bob raised his beer and said, "God bless America," and the inspector, the fire marshal, even Officer Miller ended up smiling. Justice in the suburbs isn't about fines. It's about who gets to make the neighborhood laugh. So I'll ask you this: where do you draw the line between harmless mischief and plain old harassment? Is it okay to weaponize holiday decor for the sake of community color? Or does that cross some moral boundary? Tell me, have you ever been in a petty neighborhood war that turned into something unexpectedly good or ruinously bad? Drop your story, pick a side, and tell me if I'm a creative genius or just a guy who needs new hobbies.